Look twice at the grey dress and you'll hear Balmoral. No brooch, no slogan, no speech. Just a whisper of tartan, and a message you feel before you name it. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped out this week in a new Alessandra rich Midi and set the room to a quieter key. At first glance it was simply elegant, a soft grey ground, a heritage check that hints at Highland air, puffed sleeves lifting the line, a neatly held waist, and that unmistakable Peter Pan collar framing her face. Look again and the echo lands, the gentle rhyme with Queen Elizabeth II's final photograph at Balmoral, tartan at her knees, duty in her smile. Not imitation. Conversation. Catherine understands what the older generation has always known. In the royal family, clothes are a language. Red arrives at diplomatic meetings before the words do. A small pin can carry a regiment, a memory, a promise. A simple bow at the neckline can nod to a cause without tugging the sleeve. And, now and then, the most eloquent sentence is cut in cloth, modern in silhouette, rooted in tradition, designed to sit correctly under bright lights and unblinking lenses and still say, without fuss, I remember. The choice of tone mattered as much as the cut. This was a week for composure, not fireworks, for steadiness, not spectacle. No sharp metallics, no headline hue. The palette stayed respectful, the finish was restrained. If you've watched Catherine for years, you'll recognize the discipline. Let one idea lead, support it everywhere else. The heels were sleek but soft-spoken, the hair left in loose, polished waves, jewelry pared down to a murmur so the dress could carry the note of remembrance without a competing chorus. It's the same judgment you see at cenotaphs, cathedrals, and school gymnasiums, different rooms, one register. That Peter Pan collar did more work than any necklace could. Flat, rounded, quietly architectural, it throws soft light toward the face and nods to a century of British wardrobes, school rooms and Sunday best, framed class photos in albums your hands remember as much as your eyes. On a princess it reads like courtesy made visible, on a day tuned to heritage it reads like a promise to keep faith with the old notes even as the arrangement changes. There is nothing showy in it, only steadiness. Alessandra Rich is a trusted hand for that balance. The house is expert at stitching memory to movement so a garment feels ready for a day's work, walking quickly, turning kindly, bending to talk at child height, kneeling beside a display without creasing like a paper fan. You can see the practicality in the pattern placement and the way the sleeves keep their cloud without swallowing the wrist. Structure holds the shape, grace holds the gaze. You can see why Catherine returns to it when she wants fashion to behave like a sentence with good grammar. Some tributes thump the table. This one kept time with a wristwatch. The reference sat where it should there for anyone who remembered that last Balmoral image, invisible to anyone new to the story. That is Catherine's register. She rarely underlines, she trusts you to connect the threads. It's the difference between costume and conversation. Costume reenacts, conversation respects and renews. If you trace her wardrobe across the years, a pattern emerges that older eyes recognize immediately. She dresses in 3 layers at once: service, setting, story. Service first, clothes that let the work happen without obstruction or apology. Setting next, read the room, the season, the etiquette of a somber morning or a bright afternoon, and tune accordingly. Story last, a texture, a collar, a familiar plaid that pulls a thread from the past into the present. This appearance did all 3 and did them gently, which is the point. The great trick of royal dressing is to be noticed by everyone and remembered for the right reason by each person. It also did something practical the camera can't quite show, it put people at ease. A heritage print says you know me to a nation that still keeps. A tartan scarf by the door, grey carries every conversation without crowding it. The silhouette is formal enough for a photograph that will live forever and humane enough for a hallway chat that will be forgotten by tea time. That sort of judgment isn't luck. It is craft learned the slow way: fittings, test walks, flash tests, the quiet council of dressers who remember what worked on rainy platforms and windy fields. There's a technical story here for those who appreciate the make of a thing. You could see the hem weighted just enough to sit, not swing, the shoulder line shaped to carry a handbag and a day's schedule without barking at the collarbone, the print matched across seams so the eye reads calm, not interrupt. The collar sits a breath below the throat so the voice carries clearly. Try speaking to a room in a high neck and you will understand why older couturiers mark the line with pins, then lower it by a finger's width. That's not fashion, that's experience. The hair, glossed, movable, anchored where it must be, did its share of quiet work. Older viewers know this too. A good blow-dry is not vanity under television lights, it's clarity. Stray wisps become halos in camera glare, and halos steal attention. Smooth the frame, and the face can speak. The pumps, likewise, were not a flourish but a tool, enough lift to lengthen the line under midi length, not so much that the stride shortens to a totter. 2 steps on a shallow dais tell you more about a shoe than a runway will. None of this would matter if the feeling were wrong. It wasn't. The whole look held the same low, exact note the late Queen liked: let memory be noticed rather than announced. The Balmoral echo was there if you wanted it, the suggestion of a plaid you've seen in a hallway hung with Landseer prints, the sense of good tweed beside a coal fire, but it never dragged the day backwards. That is the point of a living institution. It speaks to the past the way you speak to a portrait in your own hallway, with affection, not theatre. For those who watch the small royal signals, there were other courtesies folded in. No jangling bracelets to fight a microphone. No sharp hardware to flick the eye every time a wrist turned. A clutch that tucked under the arm instead of occupying both hands. There's a politeness in that, particularly when the schedule involves talking to children or shaking 100 hands in a corridor where everyone wants a fraction of a second to feel seen. Make the body available to the moment, the clothes should obey. Older viewers, the ones who remember post-war utility labels, who know the virtue of mending, who can spot a good lining at 10 paces, tend to appreciate this sort of thing. Royalty at its best is not a catalogue. It is reliability. You show up in the right key, you make the room easier for other people, you don't waste attention, and you leave a place a little steadier than you found it. That can be done in diamonds and velvet, it can be done in a quiet dress with a rounded collar. The virtue is the same. Of course, some will shrug and say it's only a dress. They aren't wrong. It is only a dress in the way a flag is only fabric and a hymn is only words. Meaning attaches to objects we carry together over time. Balmoral tartan, Peter Pan collars, the measured grey of a British sky before rain, these are notes in our shared ear. When a senior royal arranges them cleanly, older hearts hear it and younger hearts learn it without being told. That is how traditions survive, they are worn well. There is also a lesson in restraint that feels quietly radical now. We live in a moment that rewards shouting. This didn't. It trusted the viewer. It let the echo of a last photograph do its work without gilding it. It honored a woman who believed in duty and good humor without borrowing her halo. You can call that old-fashioned. You can also call it effective. The line between sentiment and sentimentality is thinner than a hem, she kept to the right side. Look, too, at the way the modern sat inside the heritage. The cut is cleaner than anything you'd find in a 1950s pattern book, the fabric handles stage lights and sudden rain, the internal architecture lets a mother of 3 move at the pace of a working day. That is the blend this generation must master, memory that doesn't feel stuffy, currency that doesn't feel throwaway. This is how you keep a monarchy legible in a century that edits fast. If you felt warmed by the sight, you weren't imagining it. There is comfort in continuity that doesn't calcify. The dress read as a small reaffirmation that the conversation between generations is still fluent. The late Queen's vocabulary of service has not been mislaid, it has been absorbed and spoken with a younger mouth. You could sense it in the way people in the room adjusted themselves, backs a little straighter, voices a shade softer, because someone had arrived who knew how to arrive. So, yes, it was just a grey midi with a collar you could trace with your fingertip. But that is how this family speaks when it wants to be understood by people who remember long lives and longer winters, softly, correctly, with a fabric that knows where it came from and a line that knows where it is going. Catherine didn't spell it out, she wore it. And in that low, exact register, she said enough.